Hello on YouTube, Anime Bar Lounge here. Today we're talking about Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I really liked it.
I did not.
And that's great because we have our first discourse. Because usually there's not a lot of difference between which one of us liked a show and which one didn't. If anything, one of us might be neutral and one of us might be positive. I think this is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, if one of us was positive and the other one was negative.
As far as it goes for this stuff, yeah.
And it is worth noting, I think the overall majority of the show is positive, so you're the hot take here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I am the one with the hot take when it comes to Edgerunners.
Yeah, so most people really like the show. It's animated by Trigger, so obviously that means it has big shoes to fill! Because Trigger is a wonderful studio that's made many great works, and so in order to even come close, it needs to be able to fill those shoes and then some. So it did something different here. It took an existing property. It took something that was already very, it took a property that was already something people were excited for and wanted to do well, and then didn't do well. And then it had to work with that.
No matter what I can say about Edgerunners, Edgerunners revitalized 2077.
Oh, absolutely.
To a point that is absurd, and I have an immense amount of respect for that. I have an immense amount of respect for Trigger in general.
Yeah.
So.
The worst part about the anime? No Keanu Reeves.
True.
Any edit that had Keanu Reeves reacting to this? Wonderful.
Very true.
Well, time to talk about the actual show itself. Do you want me to start, or shall I?
Go ahead.
Alright, so, I only watched the show because she watched the show, which had me... Because I usually only watch things if people are passionate about them, which usually means passionate in the positive note, but she really didn't like it, so I was like, oh, well, I need to know why it was so bad. And then I ended up liking it. For me, what I liked about the show was that tragedies can be a hard show to watch, because they take you through a pathway that you're probably not going to be comfortable with. Most shows at least end on a happy note, so even if something tragic happened, you at least feel lifted from that dark prison that tragedy put you in. You don't get that in this show. It just gets worse and worse in terms of how dark it is, so you're going to be left in that dark, looming place. And then you have to deal with it. You don't get the show doesn't get you out of there. You have to deal with your emotions, and that sucks. But I really loved how character-driven it was. I loved the Studio Trigger animation. The scenes that stick out in my mind were like typical Studio Trigger, just masterpiece.
It is really good. It's really good.
The soundtrack, which I can't praise enough. If you're not watching the show, you need to at least go check out the soundtrack. I'm gonna be honest. I know some of it is from the game. I was
just gonna say, yeah.
I don't know how much of it is from the game. So yes, it's reusing some of that soundtrack. I think
like one of the most cool things about it is the song.
Yeah.
Is from the game, and it was in the game before that anime came out.
Yeah.
So if you go back to that, it's like, oh no, oh my god.
The show starts off with David. David goes through shit. He's like going in school. It's a weird place to be in because this show takes place in the future, but it feels very real if you're living in nowadays times. At least in my opinion, in my subjective experience living in America, it feels like a slice of what could be waiting for us in the future, which is very uncomfortable. But I also like that it sheds light on that.
So that actually is one of the things that I liked the most about it. I played 2077, so...
You did?
I did.
I actually didn't know that.
I did play 2077 when it came out, and I always felt personally that it didn't quite it didn't quite nail the landing on making Night City feel awful. I mean, obviously some part of that's going to come from playing an open world game where you can go literally anywhere at any time. But even in like the places that are supposed to be run down, it never felt anywhere near the level of run down that where David feels.
Yeah. Oh, David goes through shit.
Yeah. It feels like shit to be in Night City.
If you're not rich. Because he's going to a rich preppy boy school when he's not a rich preppy boy. And they know that. And they treat him like shit. And he doesn't fall in line. So they treat him even more like shit. And then bad thing after bad thing happens to you, and it shows what happens if you're not rich. One bad thing happens to you, your life is over. And that's what I really liked about it, is it sheds light on that. David has one bad thing happen to him, specifically his mother, but his mother's what he needs to support him. So one bad thing happens to his mother, they can't pay to get her on a good hospital plan, so she dies, and then his life just snowballs from there. He has people that he loves and respects, but these people are also not in a good place in society. They're doing what they need to survive, but they're never going to make it unless they get incredible lucky. And spoiler alert, they don't. They slowly, each of them in their group, I love their group, it's a very nice tight-knit group, but everyone in their group just takes L after L, and they slowly get picked off until there's only one of them left, Lucy. And then Lucy gets what used to be her dream, spoiler alert, goes to the moon, but no one that she loved is there anymore, which sucks. Because there's a lot of dreams I would like to realize in life, but if I didn't have anyone that I cared about there with me when they happened, no one to actually, like, celebrate them with, it would feel hollow and empty. And that's what the ending makes you feel. Hollow and empty. But it's a slice of reality that you can reflect on.
Every time you see people on Twitter like, I'm going to start Edgerunners. It's going to be great. And then literally the next post is, I finished Edgerunners.
It's great in moments, in bursts. There's scenes that are great that make you feel high, but when you get to the ending, man, oh, it ain't great. You are not on cloud nine. You might enjoy what you watched, but there's going to be a hole in your heart when you're done.
Unless you're this person. Like I said, I come across a lot harsher on this than I probably mean to, but my issue completely stems from the fact that I didn't resonate with these characters. The characters didn't hit for me the way they hit for you. And because this show is 10 episodes long and runs at a pace of lightning speed, I never clicked with them. The only character that I did click with was Rebecca. And I feel like everybody and their mother likes Rebecca at this point. So it's like, if I don't like the characters and you start killing them off in really gruesome ways, it's just not going to resonate for me. So by the end of the show, I'm just like, yep, is it over yet? Is it over yet? Like, that's cool. That's nice. And obviously, in that last episode, they kill Rebecca in what I found to be, personally for me, one of the absolute worst deaths I've ever seen in anything. I found it incredibly anticlimactic, and it actually pissed me off to the point that I was like, I almost dropped that shit right there, and there was only 2 minutes left. But, like, what am I going to do at that point? I may as well just finish it.
Yeah.
But it pissed me off a lot. And there was similar stuff to that in other shows, actually, which is funny to think about, that I can think of in one of the JoJo seasons. Specifically part 5 with Narantia, which also ticked me off because I found it to be anticlimactic. And like I said,
I don't agree with that one. I don't agree with Narantia, but just wanted to throw that out there. But
yeah.
I'll get back to you because I want to talk about Rebecca too.
Yeah. So it really just comes down to that for me. If I don't resonate with the characters, and then the story itself is going at lightning speed, specifically I found I can't remember which episode it is that Main goes Cyber Psycho, if it was 5 or 6.
It's 6.
But there's a time skip right after that.
Oh, yeah.
And that really kind of ticked me off because we didn't get to see the grief. It just kind of happened. Because we get to see it through Lucy and David, obviously. Yeah. But I didn't resonate with those characters, so I didn't care.
It's subtle. It's there. You see it. But it's not... They could have done a better job, I guess, of doing it. Like, I mean, I guess, if you like subtlety, you like subtlety, but it might have been a little too subtle.
This is it's also in that next episode that they have that one kid that joins them and then he immediately gets exploded.
Yeah, literally Rip Bozo moment.
I hated that because it came an episode after all that. It's like, I felt you couldn't just go from a big emotional death to the very next episode, haha, that guy died, look at him, he blew up. I found the tone to be completely all over the place, which is weird for me because I like stuff that the tone is differing, but they have to juggle that shit for me to really get it, and I didn't think Edgerunners did it well. That was my personal opinion on it.
All right, so I'm gonna jump in here and go off some of the stuff you said because I obviously have input on that. I'm going to strongly agree on the Rebecca death thing because her death comes so late, and it feels like at that like.
You thought they were safe.
Yeah, like, I'm fine with character deaths, but 9 times out of 10 when a character dies, I feel like, people die when they're killed. Fate stay night moment. But, in writing, usually you want that to mean something. Self-sacrifice,
Exactly.
being self-sacrifice is the most
because
common
I
one.
understand the concept of a meaningless death.
Yeah.
Like especially in like a cyberpunk setting like this where the world itself is horrible.
Yeah.
But you built that character up. You can't just do the meaningless death on a character you built up like that.
Well, most of the deaths in Cyberrunner you can point at and say this had a purpose too. Main had a purpose. His death really touched me. I know it didn't touch you because you didn't vibe with the character, but you can at least see from a writing perspective his death had a point.
Of course, yeah.
And then also comparing Rebecca's death to the random guy that dies. To me, even the random guy that died had a bit of purpose. It was a Rip Bozo moment, but it really just...
I think
it reinforces how terrible Night City is, because a random dude can just die, and David and Lucy and all them can just be like...
I think it also... Yeah, because then it also does kind of feed into how disconnected they've become since Main died.
Yeah.
But... It's just that quickness.
Rebecca dying felt like they were just starting to tick off character deaths, and they're just like, well, it felt like they were getting to a point where they wanted every character but Lucy to die, just so that when Lucy is on the moon,
it's not even everybody but Lucy though, because Falco also lives.
True.
So it's just...
It's almost everyone.
It's almost everyone, and Falco doesn't really actually
Yeah.
feel as important as everybody else did. So... The other thing that I want to bring up, because I think this is the biggest point of discourse and one of my biggest nitpicks with the series, is... So after Main dies, obviously there's a time skip.
Yeah.
David starts essentially cybermaxing. He's getting... absolutely turning into an absolute cyborg.
Yeah.
Lucy has quit being a netrunner because she's, traumatized from this entire thing. I don't really understand how she can be so traumatized by it, but literally be seeing David do the same thing and never say a thing about it. Especially if they're in that relationship together. And I know this is probably just something that, I don't see, because I've never been in that situation. Yeah. So I don't want to get in there and, invalidate someone else's experience, but for me, it felt like bad writing.
I'm going to disagree here, because I feel like I know what it's... I feel like when you're traumatized, it's hard to really confront people. So, it's not easy, but it's sometimes, as a trauma response, if you see someone doing similar things you were doing, you're just going to quietly sit there, even though that's not healthy, because you don't know how to interpret your own trauma. How are you going to help someone else through theirs? And I mean, eventually they do hit a point of contention where they have to deal with it anyway, but metaphorically...
It is a problem that hits the point of being too late before it can be fixed.
Metaphorically, Lucy is running the whole show. Not running the whole show like a circus, but running away from her problems the whole show.
Yeah.
Until the last episode, in which case her problems aren't even technically resolved. She's just... she got the best ending she could have gotten when everyone was dead, effectively. It's not a good ending, but it wasn't, the worst ending for her. But yeah, metaphorically, she's running away from her trauma, which I find to be very realistic and good writing, but maybe not the best writing. But trauma's a very hard subject to write well anyway.
And I have been in a position of, saying that I have not experienced the death of a loved one in that way, so I genuinely can't relate. It's something that I have an immense amount of trouble relating to in almost any media. They have to set that stuff up real hard for it to hit me. For example, Vinland Saga does it really well.
Yeah.
One Piece has done it very well, but
well, One Piece is a Class A act.
True, it's kind of hard.
You hit a backstory, you're like, oh, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Show me what's good.
So 10 episodes just isn't enough for me to get that.
Yeah.
I
mean, it could have been. A One Piece backstory is only 2 to 3 episodes.
Okay, fair, but, I'm, used to that shit at this point. I've practically been brainwashed. But, Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I agree. Rebecca's death that felt like taking off a box. I liked Maine. Maine for me felt like big tough father figure. I really liked his influence on David. I really like David as a character because he feels like I feel like him going through cyberpsychosis and overdosing was both really thematically strong for me on a physical level, seeing it happen, and a metaphoric level from a writing perspective. See, for me, David as a character is a character that I think if he just followed with one thing or followed his own dreams, he had a good head on his shoulder. He probably would have made it. His issue is that he's a dreamer that also takes on the burden of others.
He literally thought he was built different.
Yeah, that was a funny double line, I'm not gonna lie.
That was in the sub too.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't notice then. But yeah, David takes on the burdens of others, and he burdened himself too much. He thought he could do everything, or maybe he didn't even think he could do everything, but like, you know, as he met his tight-knit group, he kept taking on more and more responsibilities, and he was head and shoulders stronger than your average bear. But he's only one man in a society that's built to crush you. So yeah, as soon as he started taking on other people's burdens, he was destined to fall. And unfortunately, I think he got as good an ending as he could have got, taking on as much as he did. And I think he did a very admirable job of fighting the system, but the system is designed to push people like him down.
Yep.
And so the word, I forget exactly what the wording is, but when his doctor, the psycho doctor, tells him like, you're just going to be another tale for the next dreamer, that's what it is. He dreamt too big. If he managed his expectations, he could have had a better ending, but that's not who he was. And I very much respect his ability. He clearly cared about the people that were close to him, and he wanted his mom to love and respect him, even though, you know, like, she's dead, but, you know, you want to please the spirit of those who have passed. So it really feels like he wants his mom and Maine. He wants to keep their spirit alive, but he ends up literally taking. He's dangerous to himself, which is a shame. And he took that self-harm to a very dangerous level, and he got himself killed because of it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, it's not even entirely his fault. It's Night City, and that's why I feel like it does paint a picture that the game didn't, even though I haven't played the game. But, you know, one's an open world game, go do what you want to do, and one's a linear 10-episode experience. It's not surprising that the anime paints
Not
a better
to mention,
job.
in the game, you can literally pick like what your backstory is.
Yeah.
So you could literally start as a corpo, and you're already in the, you know, high end area. So it's like, you know, it's gonna feel different than a show based on a.
So this is a trigger anime, and I'm going to say something that might be my hot take. I think this is my favorite trigger anime. That's point one. And two, I think for me, subjectively, this show made every other trigger show better just by existing.
How does that work?
So a lot of trigger shows follow a formula, which isn't a bad thing. I expect that from studios. Most trigger shows try to, in my eyes, one-up themselves slowly each episode until they hit a climax, a pivotal point. And I'm counting my other favorite, Gurren Lagann, even though they were Gainax at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But they're close enough, so just know that for me, the episodes that I've seen, the shows I've seen for Studio Trigger are Gurren Lagann, even though it was Gainax, Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia, and half of Darling in the Franxx, and like scenes from Promare. So like I've seen most of their bigger works, and they follow the formula of just sort of creeping up and snowballing effect, and I like it because it shows the infinite potential humans have. It's very cool, but most of their shows end in a very happy way. Usually there's a good ending. There's usually some tragic
This
shit
is
on
like
the
one
way.
of the least triggery trigger anime as far as thematics go.
Yes.
Like obviously, you know that's a Trigger anime when you see it.
Yeah.
But thematically, it's way darker than anything they've ever done.
For me, it still has some of that Trigger formula in it. It's still one-upping itself. But in this, it's one-upping itself by David taking on more and more shit and never getting a W ever. If this was a normal Trigger show, David would have just...
Would have been in a harem with both Rebecca and Lucy.
And he would have dreamt of Kamina and put on Kamina shades and be like, I am ultimate, and he would have punched the shit out of Adam Smasher, and then he would have won the day, and everyone would have went to the moon.
And there would be non-canon, and no one would care.
Exactly. But unfortunately, Trigger had to really only had one way to end this. It had to end dark. But because it ended dark, I am now looking at the show as a yin and yang to Trigger's other shows. It's like the dark version of a Studio Trigger show. And now when I go back, if I were to rewatch any Studio Trigger show, I would have more respect for it because I would have this dark show to contrast the light side of Trigger. And that's why by just existing for me, Cyberpunk Edgerunners made every Studio Trigger show I had watched before it a little bit better.
Reasonable.
But I think that last point was the last thing I really wanted to say. It's made me respect Trigger's works more than I already had. Studio Trigger's a great animation. Even if you don't like Cyberpunk Edgerunners, there's other shows you should be checking out by them. And if you haven't checked out Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I at least recommend watching it just to form an opinion. It's a lightning fast show that you're either going to love or hate. And I think that's about all I have to say about it.
I had one question for you, because when I mentioned everybody and their mother liked Rebecca, you gave me a weird look, and that made me wonder if you actually liked Rebecca or not.
Oh, no. I think I probably was trying to remember that I wanted to say something. Oh, no, I remember what it was. I wanted to bring up that... Did you know that they originally tried to write her out of the show?
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah.
And I thought that was really funny. And I'm glad...
Project Red was worried about it.
I'm glad Trigger knew what they were doing and said, no, the lolly stays. Yeah. Because they knew that character was awesome. I like Lucy about the same as Rebecca, so I'm not as much of a Rebecca stan as I could have been. But she's a fucking great character, and I love all the characters. I like how the characters feel punk. They actually feel
for sure.
In your face, flip you off, fuck you. And I like that Rebecca loved David, but Rebecca also had enough self-worth to not... Like, she even says, like, what, be cold, calculating, and boring? That's not me.
Yeah.
So, I like that she didn't try to be someone she wasn't to try to attract.
As she puts in her own words, she doesn't play friends. Like,
yeah.
If she was going to be with him, she wanted him to be all in on it, and if he wasn't...
Yeah.
I guess I'm just gonna exist then.
But Rebecca was a fucking ride or die chick, so I respect that. So no, I like Rebecca.
Okay.
No worries there.
I was gonna say, I'd be like...
Dude, me not liking Rebecca might have been a hotter take than you not liking the show. I think I would have woke up and the Rebecca fanboys and girls would have been like, this motherfucker.
They would all have their gun to your head, just like her opening the door.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Anime Bar Lounge. What's going on? Need something? Everything good?
Yes.
But yeah, that was Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I liked it. She didn't. Watch it anyway. Or don't. But you should.
Yeah, go for it.
Alright, thanks for watching YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. Take it easy. I'll see you later.